Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of Music That Makes Me. As ever, my name is Stuart. I will be your host. And what we do here, if you haven't joined us before, is effectively I am the singer and songwriter in a band you've never heard of called Chase the River. And I talk to you about all the music that I found within the last week that I have found excellent. I have them curated into a bunch of playlists that you can then go and listen to. And effectively, all this is talking about great music. And telling you about it, and hopefully you agree with me. I'm always interested to hear if you don't. Basically, there's just so much music that comes out on a regular basis. A load of the stuff we talked about last week was years old, but somehow I managed to miss it entirely. So there's a couple of rules that we have within the podcast, which I stay within. So effectively, I always run through these. I only talk about music that I like. It's kind of one of the big ones for me. I'm not going to kind of run any musician down. If I'm listening through a bunch of music and there's stuff that doesn't really vibe with me or I don't really get, I don't include it. I just don't talk about it. Couple of reasons for that. Maybe I'm in the wrong headspace to understand it. You know, sometimes if you're in a mood for a happy song and a sad one comes on, you're not going to love it. So that's on me. At the same time, maybe it's one of the best bits of music and I just didn't quite understand what the musician or group were trying to say. So I only ever talk about stuff that I like, and I'm never going to run folk down. It's only good feeling here. Second of all, no scoring mechanism here, guys. I'm not doing a 1 to 10 on this stuff. I don't understand that at a conceptual level. Like, this song is 70% good. It's not an exam. You either enjoy it or you don't, and that's kind of how I treat it. And as we say, we only talk about the stuff that we like. That's rule number 1. So, yeah, that is going to be real straightforward. Number 3, then, most of the music that I'm going to talk about is going to be new-ish. Effectively, like I said last week, there was a couple of songs that were a good bit older. But most of the stuff is going to be newish, sort of within the last sort of weeks and months. But it's all going to be new to me. So it's always going to be something that I haven't heard before, and I'm going to talk about. There's a solid chance if I haven't heard it before, you haven't heard it before, and likewise, there's a load of stuff you'll have listened to that I'll have never heard of. Which brings us on to rule number 4, which is get in touch with some great music. If you guys know some stuff I should be listening to, if there's... You know, it doesn't have to be a local band. It could be a sort of a middling successful band or, you know, Joe Bonamassa's new single. Whatever it is, get in touch. Let's start talking about great music that's happening out there. And if I like it, like I said, it gets reviewed. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm just going to play the intro and then we're going to get into this week's great music and music that makes me. Right then, so on to the third week. We're going to kick things off actually with a couple of songs that made the Music That Makes Me Work Out playlist, starting big this week. So the first one I want to talk about is Cemetery by Art of Dying. Now, Art of Dying came up on a suggested playlist for me a long time ago. It was actually one of their more chilled out songs. It was called The Best I Can, which is a lovely sort of kind of towards the back end of an album, sort of slightly chilled out. And I was kind of unaware of them then, but I really loved that song, but it was one of those bands that I never kind of went and investigated further. So then they came up that they had a new single out, a song called Cemetery. I was like, well, yeah, I loved Best I Can, so we'll give that a listen. Best I Can would make the Music That Makes Me Chilled Out playlist. This thing, Cemetery, is trying to hit you like a freight train. There's no illusions about this song. They're very unapologetic. And on further inspection, had I listened to Art of Dying more fully, I would have appreciated this. So they are just, it's a big riff. It starts off with a lovely bit of sort of guitar feedback, snare, single stroke roll into a sort of pinched harmonic, and then into a huge riff, right? The backing vocals are big and shouty. It's that sort of like, it's got a real kind of marching pace to it. So in the background off the lead singer, you've got this massive big like whoo singing, backing vocal thing going on, and they're like really stacked up, and they're just, to me, it's kind of the perfect song for working out. It's at the right pace. It's got enough sort of vitriol in it, for any of you who haven't joined before. My whole thing with the working out playlist, I don't put a lot of dance music in. I've never conceptually been able to understand dance music when working out. It just seems a little light for me. I've always gone for the rock music. So for me, this is absolutely spot on for a good weight session. It's at the right pace. It just never really drops off. The vocals are perfectly delivered. There's a real nice tone to it. The singer for Art of Dying has a lovely tone in his voice. And what I found out is actually it's got a lovely range going from their quieter stuff into their more aggressive songs. So certainly from there, you stick the headphones on, you put it on good and loud. The guitar riff is just unapologetic. It's heavy. It just links in perfectly with the bass and drum. The production value on it is super as well. Everything's got enough space in it, which sometimes for those sort of big songs, it can all feel a little bit crushed, but this is just right on the money. So that's Cemetery by Art of Dying. Highly recommend that for anybody about to go to the gym and in a bit of a mood. So the second one then for the music that makes me work out playlist is a song by Tom Morello with where it features Bring Me the Horizon. It's a song called Let's Get the Party Started. I'm conscious younger people maybe don't know a huge amount about Tom Morello, and that it's just a generational thing. Tom Morello obviously was involved with, was a guitarist in Rage Against the Machine, and then later on Audioslave, and those would be the two bands I certainly relate with him. The man is imperious when it comes to his guitar playing. He really, some guitar players to me are incredibly talented guitar players. And then there are those that moved the concept of what being a guitarist forward. Actually, they actually move that concept forward. And Tom Morello is definitely one of those guys. He has such a unique way of approaching the guitar, a unique way of playing it, and he's got a tone. It's kind of unmistaken. So this kind of actually just popped up randomly for me on a release radar. And instantly I'm like, yep, that's Tom Morello. You just hear the tone, right? I don't know how he does it. There's so much fuzz on it. I don't know if it's square wave or whatever it is. It is just incredible tone, and a huge intro riff, right? I don't know how they get the loudness into the mix the way that they do, but it just absolutely, you're just aware of this song as soon as it starts. First verse then comes down quite a bit. It's got this really sort of like repressed but distorted overall mix. Everything feels like it's been sort of scratched up a wee bit. Now Bring Me the Horizon are a band I don't know a huge amount about. I've kind of come across them incidentally, like little bits and pieces I've heard. The vocal delivery on this is just absolutely spectacular. It sits so nicely together. Obviously Tom Morello has played with some of the finest vocalists to ever step up to a microphone, and certainly from there, the first verse is very interesting as well because when it gets into the second half, Tom Morello is a lot of the stuff he plays is quite understated, right? So there's not a lot of, if you listen to it, it doesn't sound massively impressive, but if you've ever picked up a guitar, you go, how the hell did he do that? It's got this, and in the second half of the verse, it's just actually really a single note thing, but he's doing it in, I think, 30 seconds. That is just, so tight, so well delivered, and the tone that goes in the background, it adds so much to the song, but you're not necessarily overtly aware that it's happening. I've made a note about this song, and this kind of comes with the hugeness of the riff, massive big backbeat. The bass and the drums are hooked in so tight together the lyrical content mixed with the vocal delivery. I was like, this is not an angry song. This is what I would describe as focus nihilism. This is like the lyrical content is a hell of an indictment on humanity, to be honest. It's got a serious Rage Against the Machine vibe and a serious Audio Slave thing going on. The one thing that this song really reminded me was how much influence Tom Morello had on those acts in terms of what their finished product was. Like, without Tom Morello, neither of those bands would have been anything close to what they were. So certainly, and again, much like the Art of Dying song, the pace, the aggression, just everything, like, it's perfect for me. Stick this in your headset, onto your headphones, and go to the gym and move heavy things from one part of a room to another, and you will feel much, much better for having done that. And then I want to talk about number 3 this week is a song called Future Disease by Our Lady Peace. That's on the Music That Makes Me Happy playlist. Now, Our Lady Peace, full disclosure, this is a band I have loved for 17 years now. It was my first year at uni, and an old friend, James, introduced me to the band. And really from there, I've had a huge sort of admiration for them. They've always been really interesting to me. All their albums are incredibly different. They always kind of push out the boundary a little bit, so you always know when something new comes out from them, it's not necessarily going to be what you expect it to be. Some of their earlier albums, like Spiritual Machines and Happiness Is Not a Fish You Can Catch, those are just like very divergent, even within the time period that they were released in. Then they went a wee bit more mainstream in around Gravity. I don't want giving you a full back history on albums on a band, but Future Disease is something a bit different again. They've moved more into this electronic space. It's definitely an evolution of the sound. If you listen to the early stuff and the new stuff, it's night and day. There could be two different bands and about two in between as well. But there's still parts of it that make it incredibly Our Lady Peace-ish. The bass guitar, the bass and the drums have always looped in very, very tightly. That's always been sort of a thing with Our Lady Peace. There's some really interesting work at both the bass and snare. Again, not particularly showy, not particularly overstated, just doing exactly what the song needs it to do, but making them more than just a backbeat, making them, part of the instrumentation in a way that it really kind of engages you in a huge way. The vocals are signature Our Lady Peace asterisk. The asterisk on that is the vocals have actually changed quite a bit over the years in terms of the way the lyrics have structured and where the cadences have gone. But in the last sort of 7-8 years, this is very much Our Lady Peace. I'm singing. The guitar work is very understated. There's very little that happens in the first half of the song. It just kind of gives a bit of feedback, but a lot of space, a lot of things, and it's really just infectious. It's got a lovely pace to it. It's really bouncy, really happy. There's a really interesting thing. I'm just going to talk to the music production nerds out there for 30 seconds on this. I promise I'll go back to the actual song. The second verse onwards, this really interesting thing happens if you stick this on studio monitors. On the right, it's on the guitars, which I said were very understated, but for the rest of the song, they're split pretty hard. So there's they've been kind of hard panned left, right. One of them is doing a very heavily fuzzed sort of drone. Like it doesn't move too much. It sort of just sits on sort of root notes and fifths. But on the other side, it's this really clean funk guitar, and there's a real juxtaposition between those two guitar tones, and also the style in which they're playing. This is not double tracking. This is just insanity to have these two things cooperating and then to pan them hard left, hard right. But it really, really works. And that goes the whole way through. The solo, the clean guitar muddies up a wee bit, but just fantastic. The lyrical content then on the main song, Our Lady Peace has always been a little bit darker, not necessarily pessimistic, but just a wee bit sort of aware of the underbelly of humanity, and this is no different. Sort of as a song about someone's father's hands being covered in grease, and basically this is working towards a future disease. That like people working themselves into an early grave. So I mean, the lyrical content is very, very dark, but the song itself is incredibly happy. I was kind of in two minds about where to put it, but ultimately, if I put this in the sad playlist, you'd be like, sure, there's a funk song. So certainly, Our Lady Peace, Future Disease, and may I recommend basically anything by them over the last 20 or so years, despite the dark lyrics. But number 4 then. If we're going to talk about dark lyrics, we really need to talk about the 4th song this week, which is a song called Atlantis by Noah Gunderson and Phoebe Bridges. Now, I've made a note of it here, I'm just going to read it, that this song has one of the single most disturbing first verses I think I have ever heard. It really is just an incredibly, I'm not going to tell you what it is, go and listen to it, but holy hell, like it starts off like so soft, right? It's got this lovely instrumentation between it's like an acoustic guitar and a synth starts it off. And when I put this on, like I've listened to Noah Gunderson since he did a load of work on the Sons of Anarchy soundtracks, and it was something where it started off and I was like, oh, right, okay, we've got this lovely Noah Gunderson song happening. And then the lyric, like, it's not one of those songs that you kind of mishear the lyrics because there's some mad musical stuff going on. Like, the lyrics are the point of a Noah Gunderson song. And, yeah, they're dark as hell, really. The first couple of verses are. But talking about the song as a whole, the mixing on this is next level. The interplay between the guitar and the synths I've talked about. The decisions that were made on the drums were just perfect, right? So it's not overstated, no one's overplaying it, it's just what the song needs. But at the same time, at a production level, there's an affection on the drum and on the overall mix, certainly on the kick and the toms. I wouldn't go so far as to call it 8-bit, but it's definitely been kind of, bit crushed a wee bit. But it's a superb sound and it fits really nicely within the full mix. In the there's a note here about the 3rd minute. There's a beautiful bit where it sort of comes down. There's a bit of a come down within it, and there's these lovely backing vocals that sort of remind me of some sort of mid-90s stuff. And they're super airy and they just sit in this really kind of nostalgic place for me. And then when we get into the 3rd chorus, we're talking about the drums again, which really caught me on this song once I got past the first verse lyrics. There's this lovely evolution, a very subtle evolution, but I suppose that really summarizes Noah Gunderson's work generally, is that the changes throughout a song are small, but in the main, they are incredibly powerful adaptations to make, right? So the majority of the drum track stays loosely the same, but there's this lovely work that's done on the ride cymbal coming in and off the bell on the cymbal. For non-drummers, you don't know what I'm saying there, but at the same time, you'll hear it and it just naturally evolves. The ride cymbal is generally panned out over to your left ear. And you just hear this added bit, and it's a simple little bit to add, but it adds so much progression within the song. I mentioned the song's incredibly dark first verse, but what I would say, it is a love song, right? And it's actually as dark as the lyrics are, it's actually an incredibly sweet love song. And it resolves itself. The darkness of the start of it resolves beautifully through at the end, and it's just one of these things. I've made a note at the bottom when I was writing about this song. And the thing about Noah Gunderson is, no matter what you say, but he's just a master songwriter. He just writes some incredible music, and this is no different. This one had a twist to it that is not always prevalent in his songwriting, and certainly not one with the degree of twist that this one had. But he is a man who just knows how to put a song together, how to take it on a journey without overworking it. Everything like kneading bread. He knows how to just get it right without having to overthink the problem, and bring you to a place of just utter relaxation, actually. So I've put that on the Music That Makes Me Chilled playlist. There'll be a couple of songs by him on that playlist because I'm just a huge fan of the man. So his new work is continuation for me. It's just never-endingly excellent. There's very few things that he has put out that I have ever kind of gone, maybe not for me. So that's Noah Gunderson with Phoebe Bridgers, who deserves special mention. I've talked about the whole thing. Her interplay on the lyrics and delivery of them they make the song. They really do. Like, the two voices work incredibly well together. And so Phoebe Bridgers is not someone I'm aware of, but at the same time, I am now, and the next time I'm going looking, I'm certainly going to have a look at that. So the next one then, I've got two more to talk about this week, I think. I'll just double check the notes. I do. So the last two, let me see. First of all, we have Wish It Would Rain by Dianne Durret. Deray Dirt, not sure. This is in the Music That Makes Me Chilled playlist. I'm going to be perfectly honest. This is not a song that I am in a position to talk about with great confidence. It's not my forte. It's a 6/8 kind of lounge soul, like a real kind of Norah Jones, but more down into that subgenre. So it's not something it's not my forte. But at the same time, I listened to it and I couldn't not talk about it, even though I can't talk about it with a huge amount of authority. This woman's voice is just superlative. I mean, the whole song is, but Diane's voice has so much air to it. There's a load of feeling in the full song, and that kind of comes to the whole production. It feels incredibly loose and incredibly tight at the same time. The backing vocals in particularly, like, they hit in like so with the singer, and used sparingly. Like, really, just like, there's been some incredible choices made within the production and recording process. I made a note here that the entire band were masters at not playing. And what I mean by that, it's about the highest compliment I will ever pay a band, is that for me, the vast majority of music is knowing when to shut up. It's not about what you play, it's about what you don't. And that's what the instrumentation on this song is a lesson in. You can tell that everybody involved in this record, everybody playing, is world class at what they do. But they play incredibly sparingly because it gives the air, it gives the space for the vocals to come in. And then when the backing vocals come, like, when they use them and they hit just, perfectly in sync with each other, it makes a song, right? And it's just an incredible instrumentation and orchestration that's been pulled together there. The production itself, now I had it on in the studio here, which obviously has some good enough monitors, and the production quality was just if I close my eyes, I could have transported myself to any. If you imagine any movie that has that kind of Art Deco style jazz club in it, and you know the female singer and all the thing, you could close your eye and you could almost smell the smoke of that room. Like it was that it just brought you to that kind of place. You feel like you're about three. You could be looking at the band. If you close your eyes and listen to this song, you can picture the whole thing, the whole tone of the song, for the first sort of 4-ish minutes of it. It then goes into a beautiful kind of feels freestyle, but it definitely isn't. Sort of outro. Everything builds. It's the lyrics break down and become quite freestyle, and it's just. I mean, again, I was about to say it's a perfect example of this genre. I don't really know. It's not something I listen to a huge amount, but it was an incredibly good song to listen to. So that's Dianne Dirt, Wish It Would Rain. And I have probably insulted everybody who knows this type of music and used all the wrong words and inferences. And for that, I don't apologize too much. Certainly from there, love the song. Everybody should listen to it. It's on the Music That Makes Me Chilled playlist. And then finally, speaking of insulting people, I'm going to talk about a song by Kari Bremnes called Vores Ring. Now, I've definitely mispronounced that. Kari is from Norway. I had to Google this to find out because I needed to understand what the title of the song was about. And there's a reason for that. I had 2 different playlists to put it in. I was debating between the chilled one and the sad one. I ended up putting it in the chilled one, which means this week there's nothing going into the sad playlist. And the only reason for that was because it translates as Our Ring. Now, the song is in Norwegian, so I have no idea what this song is about. I know it's called Our Ring. And that's that, really. Within that, though, I kind of inferred that it possibly wasn't a sad song in lyrical content, so I made an executive decision. It's my podcast. I'm allowed to do this. But yes, talking about this song. So we're not going to talk about the lyrical content. It's in Norwegian. If any Norwegian fans are listening to this, please tell me how I mistranslated it, and then tell me if I put it in the right playlist. But talking about the instrumentation, it's lovely and laid back. It's super chilled out. It starts off with this lovely delayed guitar and some backing vocals. This sort of like kind of droned backing vocals. It's not no lyrics to them. Kari's voice is incredibly pure. It reminded me. Now, obviously, I'm not an aficionado on lounge music. I'm certainly not an aficionado on Norwegian folk music, but it reminded me of kind of old world kind of folk music, the sort of stuff you would imagine in, like, if anyone's seen Midsummer or even The Wicker Man. I'm going horror movie here. It is nearly Halloween. Seems fair. That sort of like old folk town. Everybody in kind of the white dresses in the field. It kind of reminds me a little bit of that. Imagine it in a movie with a montage where there's vistas and mountains and babbling brooks, if that's the thing. I can't believe I said that on the internet. That's definitely going to come back in 10 years' time. The bass and drums then, the instrumentation is incredibly simple, right? But it creates this beautiful space for the voice to come through. It's got a real oldie world feel to it. The bass and drums are basically there to fill in the lower frequency end. Now, I don't say that as an insult. I'm not saying that they don't serve a very, very important purpose. But they're not. You don't pay attention to them unless you're paying attention to them, which is kind of great. They fit in beautifully. They just add this low end. They just add this body to the song, which is exactly what you want it to do, unless your Our Lady piece and the bass line is the function of the song. Um, with this, the vocals are definitely the reason you're listening to it, and everything else just kind of washes through the song and washes over you, which is exactly what it's been meant to do. So it's exactly on point. It adds this incredible sense of calm. I got an overall feeling it had a kind of like sad tone to me, but there's space everywhere in the production of it. There's a lovely bit, again, we talked about it earlier, again with the Our Lady Peace song, where it bounces left and right in the speakers. There's a part in the middle of the song of this where there's a pick guitar coming out of one side, and then it bounces off to a piano playing basically exactly the same thing but in the other speaker, and it does this lovely interplay. And use of panning like that really just kind of adds spice to a song, like just makes it feel better, right? So yeah, that's Vora's Ring by Kari Bremnes, and I apologize, Kari, if you hear me talking like this, if I have got the inference of that song wrong. But yeah, that is it. It is entirely a song you should listen to. Again, it's on the chilled playlist. So this week, what do we have? Two to the chilled playlist, three to the chilled playlist, one to the happy, and two to the workout one. And that will do it for this week. Thank you very much again for stopping by. I always draw attention to the final rule. If there is something I should know about, get in touch. If you hated this, tell me in the YouTube comment section. I mean, I'm trying to build a positive space for talking about great music, so I'd rather you kept it on the positive side, but you know, it is the internet. If you're listening to this on the podcast, wherever you get your podcast, Apple or Google, whatever, then, you know, subscribe, like, share, tell folk. You can always find us here at chasetheriver.com or directly at musicthatmakesme.com. And you can get in touch and just say hi. Let me know about someone you know who's got music coming out, has come out, is out, has been out for 2 years, and just no chance I will have heard it before. And apart from that, look after each other, be incredibly kind to one another. We're all in this together. I hope you've enjoyed yourself. If you haven't, again, well, let me know. Yeah, until next week, be kind. Take care. Bye.